In this lecture, we'll learn about working with brokers and brokerage firms. Lots of people say that Wall Street is motivated by greed and that brokers prey on defenseless consumers. Yes, the financial services industry has its share of scoundrels. So does every other profession. Distrust of Wall Street isn't new, of course. Over 100 years ago, in 1908, the popular magazine Puck featured a cover that painted the financial industry as a casino that put investors at the mercy of market manipulators and insiders. The story of greedy, rich people ripping off the rest of us never gets old, does it? I don't put much stock in the claim that brokers are a dastardly lot. Almost all brokers are honest, and most of the people being scammed by allegedly greedy brokers get victimized because they have the same trait that they attribute to brokers. They're greedy. They fall for a get-rich scheme because they want to make tons of money without having to work for it. Don't we all want that? A common ploy of con artists is to pretend that they're offering a special deal available only to a select group. Yes, you are one of the lucky few with access to this deal, so keep it a secret. Please. Everywhere else you see brokerage firms, mutual funds, financial advisors, and all sorts of other groups fighting each other for more customers. But you're supposed to believe that you're getting the chance to make a killing with little or no risk? If you believe that, then lots of people will be lining up to separate you from your money. If someone offers you an exclusive opportunity, ask yourself why you have suddenly been so blessed. Think about all of those smart guys backed with great technology that spend their whole careers searching everywhere for good deals. By the time this exclusive opportunity gets to us, the proverbial guys and gals on the street, is it really possible that there's still money being left on the table just for us? I doubt that any of you would fall for a scam that came out of the blue, like a phone call or an internet phishing scam. By now, you all know that Nigerian prince who sent you that email promising riches isn't really your distant relative. No, strangers aren't the big danger. Affinity fraud is more dangerous. With affinity fraud, you don't get approached by a stranger. It's a member of your school's alumni club or maybe a church group. You're much more likely to trust someone from an affinity group, and con artists know it. Look, even I know how to guarantee that I'll have a successful financial newsletter, attracting lots of customers who will happily pay me for access to my extreme financial skill. I'll write 4 newsletters. My first newsletter will predict that stocks will go up both this year and next. The second will predict that stocks will go up this year and down the next. The third, that one says that stocks will go down this year and up the next. You know what newsletter 4 will say, don't you? Right. Stocks will go down both years. At the end of 2 years, I'll shut down the 3 that were wrong and tout the one that was right as proving my forecasting skill. One guy can't get away with producing and selling 4 newsletters with 4 different predictions. But 4 different guys can, and news reporters will focus on the one that had it right the last 2 years. Statisticians will tell you that for 3 years, you need 8 newsletters. For 4 years, you'd need 16. And for each successive year, you'd need twice as many as the previous year. In an investing world with thousands of newsletters, someone is going to get it right just by dumb luck. That's the guy that'll be all over the internet, Twitter, and TV, because we all want to know how he did it. When it comes time for you to choose a broker or financial advisor, I hope that you won't be swayed by the siren song of exclusivity and superior returns. Why are brokers necessary anyway? Do you really need one to invest in stocks? The answer is no, not necessarily. but you do need some type of brokerage account so that you can get brokerage services. Securities brokers provide the same things that real estate brokers provide. They bring buyers and sellers together. They may provide other services, such as giving advice. You don't necessarily need a real estate broker either, but you might find that the services they provide are worth the cost. Choosing a broker or brokerage firm can be an intimidating task. You can make a big mistake. And because you can always put off the choice until tomorrow, you usually do. In fact, though, choosing a broker or brokerage firm is easier than you think because you probably don't need anything fancy. Selecting a broker has a lot to do with what services you need. Full-service brokers offer research and advice, whereas other brokers only place orders for you. Which is right for you? The answer depends on whether you want those services or not, and whether you're willing to pay for them. When I set out to choose a brokerage firm, I knew that I wanted to make my own decisions. I didn't want to pay for extra services. I didn't want personalized service. I didn't want to be bothered by phone calls. I also wanted a big institution with a large trading presence because I decided, rightly or wrongly, that a big firm that had been around a while probably was doing at least a few things right. Back in the day, those institutions would have been Dean Witter, Merrill Lynch, E.F. Hutton, and the like. Nowadays, the list also includes relative newcomers such as TD Ameritrade and E-Trade. Understand now that this was what I decided would work best for me. I know lots of smart people who work with smaller firms. Over the years, I've changed firms twice. The first time, a broker got upset when I didn't want to do all of my business with him. I certainly wasn't going to do all of my business with the guy, and was kind of mad he got upset about it. So I switched firms. That second relationship lasted for 2 decades, until after a merger, the company started imposing fees on people who didn't trade much. When I called to ask them about this, I happened to get a refreshingly blunt person. He said that they really didn't want customers like me anymore, and that I'd be better off going somewhere else. I thought that was outstanding customer service. Really, I did. We were no longer a good match, and this guy did me the favor of being open about it. How do you know whether you can trust a broker or not? This isn't easy, but it's not a mystery either. It's no different than the way you know whether you can trust a lawyer, a doctor, a carpenter, or any other service provider. If you think about it for a while, then you'll soon assemble your own list of criteria for earning your trust. Do any of your friends recommend him? Has he been in business for a while? Does he have a good track record? How did you meet this guy anyway? Did you call him or did he find you, maybe with a cold call? What services does he provide, and how much does he charge? I do think, though, that brokers and other financial services providers are more likely to be honest than not. First, you have the legal layer of protection. The list of securities laws in force will make your head spin. Of course, laws against driving under the influence don't keep all of the drunks off the streets, but they help. You also have a layer of industry protection. Financial services providers have to hold certain licenses before they're allowed to engage in business. If your broker or advisor is with a firm, like Merrill Lynch, then you'll get a layer of protection from the firm itself. A large institution isn't likely to tolerate a bad apple who ruins things for the rest of the company if it can help it. Your biggest layer of safety, though, comes from competition. Financial services firms are usually in the business for the long run. They can't afford to get a bad reputation or they'll lose future business. Most of the time, taking an advantage of a customer today hurts too much in the long run to be profitable. None of these layers of protection, legal, industry, corporate, or competitive, can guarantee that you won't pick a dishonest or incompetent provider. The financial services industry is no different in this respect from other services like car mechanics, doctors, and lawyers. The bottom line is that only you know when you feel comfortable with a financial services firm and the person handling your account. Richard Ferry is a chartered financial analyst and the founder of Portfolio Solutions, an investment managing firm with something like $1 billion in assets. He's written at least 6 books about investing and writes for Forbes, among other media appearances. He offers a 3-point approach to choosing a financial advisor. First, know what you want. You wouldn't go into a car dealership and say, "I need a car, any kind will do." No, you might not know exactly what you want, but you know whether you want a truck or a car, a big car or a small one, a convertible or a sedan, and so forth. For a financial advisor, the first question might be, are you looking for a big picture advisor or do you want a portfolio manager? The term financial advisor covers 2 types of skill sets. Financial planners are generalists. They're the big picture guys who help with budgeting, insurance, taxes, and estate planning, as well as investing. The other type of advisor is the portfolio manager. These guys can help sketch out a plan, but their specialty is managing money. That is, investing your assets and handling trading activities according to your investment strategy. Financial planners usually hold either of 2 certificates. They might be a CFP for Certified Financial Planner, or perhaps a CHFC for Chartered Financial Consultant. These certificates require about a year of classwork plus experience in the field. Portfolio managers and investment analysts more commonly are CFAs, or Chartered Financial Analysts. Think of a CFA as the investing equivalent to the accounting profession's CPA, or Certified Public Accountant. Anyone who holds any of these 3 credentials is bound by a code of ethics. These certifications and codes of ethics are that layer of industry protection we mentioned earlier. I'd also check to see if the advisor has fiduciary responsibilities. That means that the advisor has to put his client's welfare ahead of his own, and they must disclose conflicts of interest. That doesn't guarantee that the advisor will put your interest ahead of his own, but if he doesn't do it, then he'll face more severe penalties than he would without fiduciary duties. The SEC and state securities agencies keep records on financial advisors. You can always check to see if the advisor has a clean record. Keep 2 things in mind, though. First, a clean record doesn't mean the person is honest. It means nobody's complained yet. Second, an SEC complaint is a little like an NCAA recruiting violation. Some of them can be serious, like fixing an athlete's grades. Some of them are just ridiculous, though, like bumping into a recruit 100 miles from his hometown and saying hello outside of the designated recruiting period. The advisor's record is important, but it's just one bit of information that can help you make your decision. Richard Ferry's second point in selecting a financial advisor is to find someone who shares your investment philosophy. If you think that markets are pretty efficient and want a passive strategy, then choosing an advisor who thinks he can pick winners on a regular basis just can't work for you. He'll always be recommending stocks to buy and sell, and you're not going to want to hear it. Some investors want an active strategy because they think that an advisor can pick winners. If you think you can find a guy who can do that, then you're going to expect more stock recommendations and account activity. An advisor who leans toward buying a diversified portfolio and more or less sitting on it won't suit your needs. It can be hard to tell whether a broker's advice is in your best interest or whether it's just designed to generate a commission. That brings us to Ferry's third point. Find out how your broker gets paid. If you know how a person gets paid, then you know a good part of what determines his behavior. Advisors mostly get paid in 4 ways. None of them is perfect. First, they may collect commissions, which are fees paid to salespeople for their services. Commissions are a great way to motivate service providers. The problem is that if their compensation depends on selling particular products, then that's what they're going to want to do. Sometimes financial advisors get paid more for recommending some products instead of others. Sometimes commissions can be hard to spot. You may have heard the term load charge, for example. Some mutual funds and insurance products have a fee built right into their cost. That's a load charge. Sometimes the load is listed and sometimes it's not. When in doubt, ask if there's a load charge. The second way that advisors get paid is through an hourly fee. This approach eliminates the incentive to push high commission products, but I'm sure you see the downside. You can't monitor the actual hours an advisor works. You're going to have to take the advisor's bill on faith. Advisors on retainer, the third way to get paid, charge an annual fee based on the amount of work that the advisor expects to do during the year. One obvious risk is that for one reason or another, you may not use the services the advisor offers. In that case, you've wasted the retainer. Another potential problem is that you might not get the service you expect. After all, the advisor gets the same fee no matter how hard he works. True, a lazy advisor will soon lose his customers, so there's a limit to the amount of shirking that goes on, but still, it can happen. Finally, an advisor can get paid a percentage of assets under management. Like the other three forms of payment, these fees can be all over the map. Most will be between 0.25% and as much as 2%. The bad part of this arrangement is that an advisor who handles $20 million doesn't work twice as hard as a guy who handles $10 million, and he doesn't have twice the expenses either. You'd think that some of those scale economies ought to sift down to the investors, but that doesn't seem to happen too much. The good part of it is that it motivates managers to produce for their clients. If they do, then you'll have more money to invest with them, and they'll attract more investors with more money. Their compensation goes up accordingly. Unless you're going to go with a bare bones brokerage account that doesn't offer anything beyond transaction services, then you might want to develop an investment policy statement. Ideally, you'd do this before you formally agree to become someone's client. That way, you'll get a much better feel for whether you have a fit. If you think you have your guy or gal already, then it's a good idea for the two of you to develop it together. An investment policy statement, or IPS for short, is a roadmap for your investment program. It ought to include the obvious stuff like your investment objectives, but after that, it can have just about anything you want in it. For a passive investor who makes his own decisions, a formal IPS isn't necessary. The more active management you want, though, the more you'll benefit from an IPS. I like the idea of including accountability in an IPS. Who is going to do what? Will you make your own investment decisions, or will the financial advisor? What documents will you receive? The IPS ought to state what constitutes a permissible investment. If you think you're a conservative investor and are new to investing, then you might want to limit the advisor to purchasing stocks and rule out other financial instruments. At the other extreme, you might be willing to let them trade just about anything on your behalf, except for a short list of excluded items. Maybe futures markets and foreign exchange trades are too esoteric for you. If so, then rule them out. Do you want to borrow funds to buy more stock and to increase your equity stake? That's risky because it will magnify any losses. But if the stocks appreciate in value, then you'll make lots more money. I also like the idea of mentally tying yourself to the mast. Remember Odysseus? He had his crew tie him to the mast of his ship so that he wouldn't succumb to the siren's seductive voices. That's a good strategy for investing too. Decide now, before the fact, how you'll respond to good and bad outcomes. What do you want to do if your portfolio falls 20%? You can invest more, or you can sell some shares, or you can do nothing and just ride it out. But it's better to decide now in the light of day with a clear head and time on your side rather than under the gun as events unfold. If you've decided to let your financial advisor make your investment decisions, then it's a good idea to specify what risks you're willing to take and which ones you want to avoid. This will probably be vague because people define risks differently. At one end of the spectrum, you can try to list everything that is acceptable or unacceptable. At the other end, you could just specify the maximum loss that you're willing to tolerate. For example, you could say that any loss of 30% relative to last year's value requires the manager to get you into riskless assets immediately so that you don't lose any more than that. Lots of people have more than one account with a financial institution. They have a checking account, a CD, a brokerage account, and whatnot. These days, it's easy to transfer funds from one to the other. Depending on your needs, you might want to specify which assets the advisor can touch. Maybe you're willing to let him sell shares without your approval under certain circumstances, but you don't want him dipping into your cash account to buy shares without your explicit permission every time. Whatever you want, spell it out. Do you want your advisor to consider your tax position? For example, you might want him to sell your stocks that have declined in value so that you can claim the tax deduction, but not until they've declined, say, 20%. You might want to focus on high dividend stocks in a tax-exempt account, but invest for price appreciation in the rest of your portfolio. If so, state it in the IPS. How much trading will you tolerate? Trading entails fees, so even if you think that your advisor can pick winners, you might want to restrict the amount of trading he's allowed to do on your behalf. Don't pay for services that you don't want or that you won't use. An IPS probably should identify benchmarks, especially for an actively managed account. What will be acceptable portfolio performance? Should the manager beat the S&P 500? Or should he just index your account to match it? Or should the benchmark be some other index? Some policy statements even specify different benchmarks for different portions of the portfolio. For example, the part of the portfolio in large companies might be pegged to the Russell 1000 index, which contains the companies with the largest market value, while the part in small companies might be pegged to the S&P 600, which contains much smaller firms. When I made my own investment policy statement, it boiled down to, I want to make my own decisions, I don't want to be bothered with phone calls or email, and I want to pay the smallest fees possible. An investment policy statement doesn't have to be complex. Whatever steps you take along the road to choosing a financial service provider, remember the bottom line. Only you know when you feel comfortable with a financial services firm and the person handling your account. Choosing the right broker is much more important for investors who believe in active management than it is for passive investors. If I'm a passive investor, then I'm mostly interested in the fees I'm paying, because my investment returns will depend almost totally on how the stock market behaves. An active investor will be trading lots more frequently. The success or failure of those trades will swamp the fee structure. If active management adds 10% to my portfolio returns, then I'm not going to be too unhappy if the trades cost me 2%. On the other hand, if active management subtracts 10%, then I'm going to be mad. Incurring all those trading costs just to be down 10% more than the market is tough to take even if the manager waives his 2% fee. Fees come in all shapes and sizes. We've all heard of commissions. They can be rather hefty. Some brokers charge over $30 per trade. Others charge much less, and some even offer a limited number of free trades per month for investors with some balances over some minimum amount, like $20,000. Depending on the makeup of your portfolio, though, that minimum balance might be a hidden fee. If it takes a $20,000 balance to get the free trades and you have that much in stocks, then fine. But if your account has $15,000 in stocks and $5,000 in cash, then you have to consider how much you're earning on that cash. Most of the time, you won't earn as much on idle cash in a brokerage account as you would in a money market fund or a bank account. The difference is what economists call an opportunity cost, and here it's a hidden fee. To hold the money in your brokerage account as cash to get free trades costs you the opportunity to earn more somewhere else. Instead of a commission, you might pay a bid-ask spread on your trades. If you place an order for stock, your broker may need to go to a dealer who keeps an inventory of those shares. That dealer has to make a living too, so he isn't going to sell at the same price at which he's willing to buy. He might be willing to buy for $10 and sell for $10.01. The spread is a penny in this case. Illiquid stocks could have a spread on the order of a dime a share. This can pile up if you trade a lot because you pay the spread on both the purchase and the sale. You'll also find account maintenance fees, fees for wire transfers or overnight delivery, fees for paper statements instead of electronic ones, and a host of others. I've even seen something called an account transfer fee, which turned out to be a charge for closing your account and moving your money to a competitor. Of course, your financial advisor will argue that he's worth those fees. He'll talk rapidly, fluently, and perhaps even truthfully to convince you that he'll provide better service or pick winners for you. Ultimately, it's up to you to decide. Brokers have to make a living too, so fees are inevitable. Again, though, don't pay for services you won't use, and be sure that you're comfortable with the ones that you do pay for. Opening an account is easy. Do an internet search for opening an account. I'd be stunned if you can't find a page that says something like, "It's easy to open an account online and it only takes 10 to 15 minutes. It's true. You'll probably see a screen that tells you what information you'll need to open your account. You won't be surprised by most of it. You'll need your social security number, your birthday, a mailing address, your employment information, and probably some general financial information like your income and net worth. As with any interaction you have over the internet, of course, be sure that you're using a legitimate website. Never provide such sensitive financial information on any website that raises doubts in your mind or in response to an unsolicited email or phone call. Some of the information you use to open an account serves as a quick filter to make sure that the account is at least a reasonable match for your needs. For example, if you have an annual income of $300,000 and a net worth of $30 million, then you don't want the student checking account. If you're a student with no income and a net worth of $10,000, then you shouldn't waste time applying for an account designed for wealthy clients. The rest of the application requests your address, residency, country of citizenship, and other stuff, some of which is required by law. Eventually, you'll have to either sign or check a box certifying the information. Then you submit the application, wait a few minutes, and you're done. It's easy. Go online within the next day or so and look at application procedures. You don't need to apply, just look. Then you might want to try this. Call a financial services firm and be brutally frank. Tell them that this is your first call and that you won't be opening accounts soon, but you want to learn what options you have. Ask them for an application so that you know what to expect if and when you decide to open an account, whether it's at this firm or some other one. In situations like this, I usually come right out and say, "What questions should I be asking?" I've never been one to let pride or insecurity stand in the way of what I want to know. Watch some ads for brokers and financial services firms on TV or the internet, too. See how they present themselves. Are they trying to track you and other clients with the promise of better returns or faster service? More trustworthy people? Which approach do you find more effective? What type of client are they trying to attract, for that matter? Young people? Older? Married? Middle class? We've learned that active traders generate more profits for these firms. Want to bet whether the ads are aimed at active traders or not? In our next lesson, we'll explore the mechanics of how trades get done and look at some of the ways you can place orders to meet different needs.